Hey everyone, Summer here with the Story of Sen, and there are some things I'd like to talk about today because I think they need to be talked about. So there's a thing going around called why spirituality. And since I'm Fae spiritual, I thought it would be a perfect time for me to talk about some of my Fae spirituality. It is not talked about often. Fae stuff is most of the time related to how do you see Fae, how do you interact with Fae, how do you find Fae, what do you gift them, what do you do to keep them away, don't work with these, don't work with these, what kinds are there, all of that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about that. That's not what we're discussing here. Now, it doesn't mean some of that stuff doesn't come into play, because it does. But when Lennon, and she's the one who started this, she started talking a few months ago about why she wanted a spiritual practice, what she thought it was. It was a great video, and there's a couple other people who've done videos too. I will link all of them down in the description. There's 3 so far that I'm aware of, so I'm going to link those 3 down in the description. It'd be Lennon, Astral Lady, and I'm sorry, I forget the third one, but there's 3. And as I'm watching their videos, I'm thinking, people don't really talk about this a lot. It's especially in our community, it's not really talked about a lot. And I went in thinking spirituality was one thing, and I've come out thinking different. So let me start by saying that originally I coincided spirituality with either religion or woo-woo metaphysics. Okay, that's kind of how I saw it. So when I would tell people that I was spiritual, it wasn't necessarily that I was religious or woo-woo. It was just this idea of an in-between, because I didn't want to tell them that I believed in fairies, that I sought fairies, that I did tarot, that I did all these things, because it's not widely accepted, particularly the fairy part, right? I get a lot of placating. I get a lot of yeah, or some teasing even. Some people will joke around, yeah, my keys ran away, so, the fairies probably took it. And here I am thinking, and even telling them, maybe you should leave an offering so those keys or that jewelry piece will come back to you. Maybe they want some attention. But oftentimes people just kind of brush me off, and particularly, in person. On here, I don't get a lot of that. Like on YouTube, I don't really get a lot of that. I don't think people really think about what I do very much. Some people do ask, and I get questions on how do I incorporate Fae into my practice, all of those kinds of things. What do I read? But it's not talked about very often. I don't even talk about it that often on my channel, and that is so sad. It's so sad, because it seems like it's more out there to try to learn how to see them, or try to learn how to not see them and get away from them, or stay away because they're bad, or all these other things. But there's so much more to this than that. Way, way more than even I anticipated. So first up, let's talk about what spirituality is and isn't. Spirituality isn't religion, and it's also not woo-woo, though it often gets incorporated into both. It is a deconstruction of all of that. It's breaking the rules, okay? Woo-woo and well, what people define as woo-woo or awakening or whatever people want to call it. I don't really define it that way, but I hear that a lot, so I'm using it as a generic term so people will understand what I'm talking about, okay? So don't come at me in the comments. But religiously, somebody is being told what to believe, what to think, how to react to it, how to study it, how to do this, how to do that. They are not doing it for themselves. They are doing it as a base, based off somebody else's structure, somebody else's authority. Even when we get into metaphysical stuff, a lot of Wiccan, witch, all that stuff does have a lot to do with, well, you got to follow this, you got to do that, you got to do this. There's a lot of authority. Spirituality is about not adhering to those authorities, and instead being your seeker, your own self-seeker. And me and Rochelle have talked about stuff like this before, but I didn't really put 2 and 2 together. So bear with me as I go on this elaborate journey with you. Because I don't, I'm just kind of figuring it out as I go. Like, I've spent weeks trying to figure out what I thought about spirituality, how what kind of practice did I want? Did I want a spiritual practice? Like, and why would I want one? Like, all of this stuff has been in my head. I've even been talking to people. My husband's mother is extremely religious. She's a Seventh-day Adventist, and I'm like, how are you spiritual? Like, what is it you do? And here I am thinking spiritual in a religious way, right? Because she's religious. And the idea is that I have folklore books to look at. I don't have a Bible. I don't have a Bible to study, right? And so I was grappling with this idea of what do I do? And I'm often told, oh yeah, go look at, Grimm's fairy tales, go do this, go do that. But it doesn't ever like feel quite right for me, not personally. So I keep struggling with it and struggling with it, struggling with it. So here I am talking to his mother. And I was telling her that I wasn't sure like how to get into this idea of putting what I want to believe or what I want to learn into practice. And she was talking about her Bible studies, and she gave me some questions that they go through with their Bible studies and everything else. But again, it's falling into this pattern of authority telling you what to look for, okay? And spirituality is beyond that. It's more than that. It's like this big giant circle, right? And inside it is religion. Inside it is metaphysical. Inside it is woo-woo. Inside it is Wicca. Inside it is all the other stuff, right? And all of us are searching somehow for a divine, a something else. But we often don't sit and think about how we're going about doing that. And I think spirituality boils down into your awareness of you, okay? And Lennon talks about this. She talks about the idea of basically drowning your ego in order to come out in a spiritual way, because the ego oftentimes is what's telling us this or that, or, it's kind of, it gets in our way, right? It gets in our way a lot. And other people's egos get in our way a lot too. Okay, so the idea is that spirituality is kind of an awakening. It's not the awakening, like, oh, how are you awoken spiritually? It's not a woke thing necessarily. It's an all-encompassing thing. It's also very coincidental to philosophy because it's the idea that you are questioning everything. I saw in a quote of some of the stuff that I was reading, I can't remember where, but it was, all possibility is fair game. That's spirituality. Okay, it's the questioning and experiencing divine. It's the question everything. Beliefs need to be broken down. You're not going by the rules. You're going by what you experience, what you actually put out there in order to believe whatever it is you want to believe, right? It's a faith almost. That's one of the ways to do it, is a faith, right? And it's broad. Spirituality though is also a broad canopy. Okay, that's why I mean like it's all encompassing. Okay. It's more about how you do it for yourself rather than how other people tell you to do it. So it's not a religion, okay, like I kind of lumped it into, and it's not really into the woo-woo category, though it encompasses those things, and which is kind of like, where the way pagan encompasses Buddhism, Hinduism, Wicca, all things that's non-traditional religion, right? But you're investigating, you're exploring, you're searching, you're seeking, you're finding knowledge, you're finding awareness. It's very much about the moment of kind of stuff. And I feel like it's more an acceptance of facts, of reality. In my comments, and so I've commented a couple of times, and one of my comments was that I didn't want to be the person who's just sitting on my couch watching TV all the time. That's not spirituality to me. That's not a lot of things to me. And I feel like spirituality is about the real moments. It's about what's really happening. It's about what's really going on. It's about the awareness, the self, and even self-love, as Lennon even discusses. And I'm in the last couple of days of doing even further research, I've really opened up to it. And that's the point. You open yourself up to everything. You're not narrowly pinpointing it. You're not labeling it in this or labeling it in that. Your focus isn't so narrowed. The idea is to widen that focus, to widen that knowledge, to broaden everything about yourself in order to find a divine. And I feel like people do that in different ways, and how they come about their spirituality may be through religion, and that's perfectly okay. It may be through tarot, and also perfectly okay, but it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. So why do I want a spiritual practice? Because I'm learning, because I am figuring things out for myself, because it's me. It's about me and seeking out what is ultimately going to turn into what my belief system is. And right now that's fairies. I have books, guys. I got tons of books with face stuff and annotations and all sorts of stuff in it. And I'm reworking my world, because my world is more than the jokes that people make about fairies, and it's more than how to see fairies. It's more than how to give offerings to fairies. It's way more than that. It's learning, it's experiencing it and like in the Celtic countries, way back even, people experienced this stuff. The Celtic fairy faith was intense and real and is still there, but it grew to be silent with science and other religions, and people would be ridiculed for their belief in it. I get ridiculed for my belief in it, just not the same ways. I don't surround myself with people who will do me harm. I can handle a few jokes. I can handle that people don't want to believe like I believe. I can handle all that. But I won't put up with somebody downing me for it. If I want to believe in fairies, I can believe in fairies, and there's not anybody who's going to tell me I can't, or that it's stupid, or that anything like that, because you'll just find yourself right out of my life. I don't need that in my life. If you can't accept it, you don't need to be here. And I don't push that on anybody. I'm not over here going, oh yeah, you should believe in fairies. No. But, if they bring it up, I'll have something to say probably. And most of the time it's in a fun way. I understand that it is something that is ridiculed. It is something that many people don't necessarily accept as a wide belief. So in my investigations and in my questionings and how I want to do a fairy practice, I have started working in books. One of the things that I did learn through talking to my husband's mother and stuff is focus. Having a focus point helps you explore more, and you don't have to stay in that one set focus, right? You can explore beyond that focus, but you've got to have a starting point. So I want a practice because I want more knowledge. I want to learn more about myself. I want to experience the divine in the way that my world will see it, that my brain will see it. And I'm a very artistic person. Lennon talks about this too, and all the different ways that she practices being spiritual. And she has a whole bunch of different ways, but you could do it through meditation. You can do it through yoga. People do it through art. Candy Soul and Soil does a lot of spiritual stuff through her art. I do a lot of spiritual stuff through my art with, my dolls that I make and my little creations, but I don't think about it. That's where I need to work on that. I need to think about why that is coming spiritual, or how that's coming spiritual. And it's not that I have to do it in every single little thing, okay? But when I am creating, I could create out of the base idea of seeking something divine or seeking fairy. And I do that on some occasions, but most of the time it just comes to me and I just do it. I'm not experiencing it the way that I would if I was more aware of the moment. Does that make more sense? Like, it's not something I'm super hyper aware of. And so I want to kind of refocus that a little bit, but I feel like the spirituality practice is important for learning more about this world, learning more about myself, and learning to love who I am and what I want, instead of somebody telling me those things, somebody imposing those upon me. Now, some of the things in my books are pretty cool, and some of the things I've come across, and I wanted to share a couple of them with you. Like in the Celtic Twilight by Yeats, which was written back in like 1861 or 2 or something like that. I don't even remember. 1865, sorry. One of his quotes is, "When all is said and done, how do we not know but that our own unreason may be better than another's truth?" And I loved that. Okay, I have this annotated. I got all sorts of stuff going on. I'm going to show you guys some of this stuff later, and even some of the books that I'm going through. But there's more, you know. There's this, even in here, there in this giant book that I just started reading, like one of the things that is explored in the fairy faith is, what are fairies? This book explores that, you know, those romantic and sometimes mischievous little people, pixies, nixies, elves, fauns, brownies, dwarves, leprechauns, and all the other forms. Are they real? Folklorists said they were fragments of ancient religious beliefs. Occultists thought they were nature spirits. The peasant tradition said they were fallen angels who were not good enough to be saved, nor bad enough to be lost. There is some truth in all of these views, and that is where the spirituality is following all of those and learning about them and breaking that down into something that is me, something that I believe, something I want to have faith in. It's my faith in that. And so that's what I'm doing. And it's kind of intense, guys, like seriously intense. I'm not even sure how I'm going to go about all of this, but I'm finding it, and I feel excited and empowered, and I don't even know. I don't even have all the words for it. People talk about regret or about all of these things, and I don't have a lot of regrets. I never really have. I know people find that hard to believe. I've made mistakes in my life, but I don't feel like a mistake is a regret. For me, a mistake is a learning process. I did something and it had a consequence, and then I reacted to said consequence, and then I moved forward from said consequence into something else, thereby learning not to do that again. That's not a mistake or a regret. That's just something that I did and then learned how to do better. That's it. That's not a regret. There are things in my life that I have done that are horrible, horrible things. I know. You wouldn't, I mean, people don't expect that out of me, but it's the truth. When I was younger, I did a lot of horrible, horrible things, but I don't regret them. There's not a moment in my life where I'm like, oh my God, if I could go back in my life, I would redo this. I would not. I would not. I just wouldn't. There's nothing to regret. Every moment that has happened has led to where I am right in this moment. And I can't regret any of that. Has it been hard? Abso-freaking-lutely. Has it been unpleasant? A lot of times, yes. Has some of it been pleasant? Absolutely. There's so much. It's not black and white. Spirituality, your life, everything that's going on, it's not so black and white. It's not this and this. It's just not. There's a whole bunch of in between. And I feel like spirituality is seeking all of that in between in order to find the divine, in order to love yourself more, in order to be a more aware, more fully experiencing life. And that's where the spirituality is. And philosophy does that, you know, that questions everything and really goes into all these different things back and forth. And I'm not a philosopher, so I'm not going to be able to tell you all the little terms that go with it. But spirituality, philosophy, all of those things kind of go hand in hand. So I'm grateful to Lennon for creating something in our community that isn't talked about a lot, and for allowing me an opportunity to narrow something down that I wasn't able to before I saw Lennon's video, before I watched other people's videos, because sometimes we need that boost from someone else, that inspiration, before we can understand something. And that's also a part of learning and living and experiencing. And so why do I want this spirituality? To learn, to live, to experience, to seek the divine, to seek, to knowledge, to everything. I want all of that. And mine's going to be in a fairy way, because that's where my stuff sits, and that's what I want. And we'll just see where it leads me, and I will keep you guys up on the journey. So if you're still with me, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. If you have any comments, go for it. Leave them down in the description. Just don't come at me, because I will just delete your comment. I'm not going to deal with it. So I hope more people in the community will explore this topic. I would love to see other people's interactions with spirituality, how they view it, how they see it, like what they're doing with it, why they want a spiritual practice, how they're doing their spiritual practice. I would love to see more of that, whether it's in tarot or witchy stuff or teddy bears. Okay, I don't care. That exploration is real, and it's an experience with someone else other than just me. And while I am okay with just me, I also want to see, I want to know, I want to learn through other people as well. I hope that makes sense. All right. Thank you guys again so much for just being here, because this was totally a ramble, and I don't ramble a lot on my channel, so ramble. You guys have a very great day.